All right, so hello everyone and welcome back to another History Fox video. In this video, I'm actually not talking about a historical person. I will actually be talking about an entire war. So let me get the image up. So does anyone know what these two roses represent? So the answer is the two factions from the War of the Roses. So the white one is the Lancaster rose and the red one is the York rose. So let me start all the way from the beginning of the War of the Roses. So there was this king, Edward III, and he had 5 sons. His first son was Edward the Black Prince, who he actually died before becoming the throne. He normally would have become the king, but he died, so he obviously didn't become the king. And then his second son was Lionel, the Duke of Antwerp. And then his third son was John of Gaunt. His fourth son was Edmund of York. And John of Gaunt actually was the original Lancaster. Well, his son was the first Lancaster king, and the Edmund of York's descendants would become the York claimants to the throne. And then his fifth son isn't that important, so I'm not actually talking about him in today's video. So Edward the Black Prince, his son became the King of England, and he reigned most of his life as the King of England until 1399, when he was deposed by Henry IV, who thought he should become the king, obviously. And so Henry IV, he it's unclear if he actually killed Richard II or if Richard II didn't or starved himself to death. But so Henry IV became the King of England, and he lived the rest of his life as the king. And so did his son Henry V. Also became the king. And then came Henry VI, who was actually not as popular because he didn't do as well in the war against France, the 100 Years' War. And so that's why he was unpopular. So then York a descendant of Edmund, Duke of York, Edward IV, or who would eventually become Edward IV of England, he decided to try to take the throne from England, and they each gathered their forces and fought each other. And this was the beginning, basically, of the main War of the Roses. So many battles were fought until Edward, Duke of York, came out victorious at first, and he became the monarch. And he was the monarch for about 9 years until Henry VI actually retreated, but he came back and he actually won. In 1470, he came back and he had another battle against Edward IV, and he won. So he was the King of England again, but this didn't last long. He was only the king for about a year until he was deposed again. But this time, Edward IV captured him, and Henry VI died in prison. So Edward IV, this, you might think this is the end of the War of the Roses, but it's not quite yet. It's the end of the main Yorks versus Lancasters, but it's not quite done with the War of the Roses, because Edward V became the king after Edward IV, but he was actually deposed by his uncle, Richard III, they were both Yorks, but Edward V couldn't really do anything about it because he was still a child. So he was actually locked up in the Tower of London by Richard III. in and he actually disappeared. So the reason why Richard III got away with locking him up was because it was for safety. And supposedly. So Richard III, yeah, the Edward V never came back, and Richard III ruled for about 2 years until Henry VII, who was technically a Lancaster descendant, but he called himself a Tudor. He fought Richard III in the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, and Henry VII won that battle, and this ended the War of the Roses and established the Tudor monarchy. All right, so that's it for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.